In the freezing December of 1940, Western civilization hung by a thread. The Battle of Britain had been won in the skies, but London burned below. The Luftwaffe pounded industrial heartlands. Coventry, Liverpool, factories reduced to rubble. On the map, the British Empire still looked vast, covering continents in pink. But inside Whitehall's underground war rooms, leaders knew a terrifying secret. The empire was bleeding financially. Winston Churchill sat at his desk to write one of the most important letters of his life. It was addressed to Franklin Delano Roosevelt, President of the United States. A plea, a confession, and a negotiation all in one. Britain, the banker of the 19th century, the workshop of the world. The empire that had defeated Napoleon was broke. When the war began in 1939, Britain was still rich. Billions in gold reserves. Overseas investments. Railroads in Argentina, copper mines in Chile, factories in the United States. London's financial center controlled global insurance and shipping. But Hitler's war was different. A war of machines, consuming steel, oil, aluminum, and rubber faster than any calculation. The blockade of Europe cut off trade with neighbors. Britain had no choice but to rely on the United States. The U.S. was neutral. Congress had passed neutrality acts. Only cash and carry was allowed. Britain could buy American supplies, but had to pay cash up front and transport them themselves. No loans, no credit. The Americans demanded immediate payment before any crate left the docks. For the first year, Britain drained its treasury to meet these demands. Gold reserves were shipped to Canada in Operation Fish, the largest movement of physical wealth in history. Billions in gold bars and securities crossed the Atlantic to pay the American bill collectors. By late 1940, the gold and liquid cash were gone. When Roosevelt received Churchill's letter, he understood the stakes. Britain would fight on the beaches, but it could not fight without ammunition. The Treasury had no money to pay for supplies. Roosevelt faced a dilemma. American law forbade giving money. Public opinion was isolationist. The solution? Lend-Lease. Sell the war as a business deal, not charity. Roosevelt described it to the press with a folksy analogy. If your neighbor's house is on fire, you lend him a hose, and he returns it when the fire is out. But behind closed doors, it was not a friendly gesture. Treasury Secretary Henry Morgenthau demanded Britain prove it had no assets left. Every asset owned by the government and private citizens, every factory, every investment, every share, had to be declared. Britain was treated not as an ally, but as a bankrupt company in receivership. Morgenthau identified American Viscose Corporation, a profitable industrial giant. Britain had to sell it, despite it being worth more than double the sale price. The sale raised $54 million, a fraction of its true value, which went straight into the U.S. Treasury. Britain's elite realized this was not partnership. This was forced liquidation. Britain needed destroyers. The U.S. agreed, but demanded 99-year leases on British naval and air bases from Newfoundland to the Caribbean. 50 rusting ships for century-long strategic control. Britain traded long-term security for short-term survival. Lend-Lease contained Article 7. Britain would dismantle imperial preference, its trade protection system. American goods would dominate British markets. British industry would face American competition without protection. Britain signed it reluctantly. The empire's economic sovereignty had been sold for survival. August 1945, Japan surrenders. War ends. London celebrates. Streets fill with joy. But 7 days later, Truman cuts Lend-Lease abruptly. Ships carrying supplies turned back mid-ocean. Britain was paralyzed, facing financial collapse. Britain borrowed $3.75 billion under commercial terms. The deadly condition, sterling convertibility. Within weeks, the pound collapsed. Imports became expensive. Cost of living soared. The British economy, once global, was now a shadow of itself. The loan repayments lasted 60 years. Through every government, every economic crisis, every generation, Britain won the war militarily. But economically, it paid for victory for decades. The empire survived Hitler, but it sold its future to America. Churchill saved lives. America gained influence. Britain lost its economic independence. Thanks for watching my video. Please subscribe my YouTube channel. Your one subscribe can change my life.